how do you calm people down when they know that they did it? How do they stay, if they know they did it, how do they stay not necessarily not guilty, but how do they stay in good graces?
Well, and of just good graces, if you know you did it, does that mean that the consequence needs to be what the government says the consequence is going to be, right? And the reality is, as a U.S. citizen, as someone who's a military service member, you're protected by the Constitution. That's the same Constitution you swore to uphold and protect. And let's not forget that. And the Constitution doesn't say if you're guilty, you need to be found guilty and do 20, 30 years and ruin your entire life and family. What it says is the government, you are innocent until proven guilty by competent evidence beyond a reasonable doubt. And so if you've committed an offense, if let's say you're guilty of something and you get found not guilty, it shouldn't be the defense that's losing sleep every night. It should be the prosecutor because they didn't build the case. They didn't have a strong enough case to prove your guilt. And oftentimes it's just not that black and white. We talked about this many times. You may be guilty of one thing, but the government will blow it out of proportion and charge you with something that's excessively more extreme than you're guilty of. And they may add 5 or 6, 7 charges for something and exaggerate the nature of the criminality. And then you're in a position where, well, I technically committed an offense, but now the government charged me with something much more extreme than what I actually did. So am I really guilty of it? I did something wrong, but I didn't commit what was charged on the charge sheet. But in either event, if you've committed an offense, it's up to the government to prove you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. You can be repentant. You can ask for forgiveness in prison, or you can ask for forgiveness on the beach somewhere. You know what I mean? And so the reality is I'd rather ask for forgiveness and turn my life around on the beach than turn my life around in prison. I don't mean that sarcastically, but that's just the reality of it. If you've committed an offense, stop talking. Don't talk to anyone except for a lawyer. Let's look at the strength of the evidence against you. And if the government can build their case beyond a reasonable doubt, and we believe after evaluating the case completely that they will likely get a guilty verdict against you, then it certainly may make sense to negotiate a plea agreement where either pleading guilty to the offense for which you're charged or to a lesser included offense or some variant in between and try to negotiate that. I like to believe I'm a very good negotiator, and the only way you can negotiate is from a position of strength and power. If someone retains you and the first call I make to the prosecutor is like begging for a plea agreement on the first call, I'm going to get a terrible deal. And that's what happens with the free military lawyers so often because they're busy. They don't know how to negotiate. The first thing they do is beg the prosecutor for an agreement, and they get a terrible agreement. You have to come in from a position of strength. And the default position is we're going to try the case and make you prove it. And oftentimes their case softens up, and they soften up once they realize how difficult it will be to secure a conviction, how expensive it's going to be to secure a conviction, the risk of losing a motion to suppress or a motion to dismiss. Once you file all of those and you come at it from a position of strength, you have something called leverage. And leverage is what gives you good plea agreements and good deals.